Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. Continuing on with NFL Week 4, Eagles-Bucs playoff rematch here. This one's in Tampa. Let's do it.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
All right, like I said, Eagles on the road in Tampa. Bucs catching 2.5 points at home. Total sitting at 44.5 as of right now. Take a look at the pie charts. According to this data, action's coming in on Philly pretty heavy here. 70% of the tickets, over 70% of the money. But again, as I always say, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the head-to-head history. And Tampa's had Philly's number, man. Bucs 5-1 in their last 6 games against the Eagles, 4-2 against the spread. We've seen 4 straight unders. So if you've been betting Bucs and under, well, actually, Bucs are just 2-2 against the spread in their last 4. But as a whole, Tampa has owned this series recently. Obviously, the most recent one is the wild card round, 32-9. Final score. Real poor showing from the Eagles there. They got their asses beat in. And trust me, I remember it vividly. I was on Philly in that game. I went 10-3 against the spread in the NFL playoffs. Killed the playoffs. Not that game. That was one of my 3 losses. So the Eagles are looking for some revenge here. So far on the season, teams seeking revenge from playoffs last year are just 1-2. Actually, the Bucs are the only team that successfully got their revenge from the playoffs last year when they beat the Lions. So they're the only team to successfully do it so far. So let's talk about how these two teams match up right now. And unfortunately, the lead story with the Eagles on the offensive side of the ball is injuries, man. I mean, they are really banged up. A.J. Brown obviously missed last game. But in addition to that, Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith, Mekhi Becton, everyone was getting banged up for the Eagles. All 4 of those guys are currently listed as questionable. As of right now, I'm recording this on Wednesday. As of right now, I don't really have any information on whether or not that these guys are going to play. You guys might be watching this on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if there's any updates on these injuries, drop them in the comments so people watching can get the most updated information. As I'm recording this right now, this is all I have. They're all listed as questionable, so we'll have to wait and see. These are key pieces, too. It's not like, who cares? Like, these are key pieces to the Eagles offense. The Eagles offense as a whole has been pretty good. They're 8th in the NFL in yards per play, 15th in success rate, 12th in EPA, 10th in yards per pass attempt, 6th in yards per carry. So the Eagles offense has been fine. The main problem on the Eagles offense, surprisingly, has been the pass protection. And the reason I said surprisingly is, I mean, the Eagles have a great offensive line. Jalen Hurts has been pressured on 41.2% of his dropbacks this season. That's 4th most in the NFL. So Jalen Hurts has been under some pressure. And if you look at the Eagles offensive line metrics, PFF, Pro Football Focus, still has them at 5th in pass blocking grade. So maybe this offensive line is going to come around. They're 24th in pressure rate allowed. And here's where it gets a little concerning. If you look at last year's numbers, Jalen Hurts, excellent handling pressure. I mean, yards per attempt, passer rating, turnover-worthy play rate, really nice-looking numbers when pressured. Look at his numbers this year. He's been terrible under pressure. One of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL so far when pressured. So that's a little bit concerning if you're an Eagles fan to see just a complete night and day flip in terms of Jalen Hurts handling pressure. Now, if you are an Eagles fan, I have some good news for you. The Bucs have no pass rush. They didn't last year, and they don't really this year. It's Todd Bowles, so they blitz a lot. Last year, they were 3rd in blitz rate. This year, they're 6th in blitz rate. So they're sending blitzes, but it's not really working. They were just 21st in pressure rate last year, 15th in adjusted sack rate. This year, they're 16th and 32nd. So the Bucs do not have a pass rush that worries you. Last week against the Broncos, Bo Nix was pressured on just 25% of his dropbacks. That's 27th most in week 3. So Bo Nix last week on the road in Tampa was one of the least pressured quarterbacks in the NFL. So yeah, safe to say the Bucs pass rush just isn't very effective right now. And honestly, neither is the Bucs defense as a whole. Tampa's defense this year, 20th in yards per play, 25th in success rate, 21st in EPA. People talk a lot of shit about the Eagles defense, but actually the Bucs defense has been worse than the Eagles defense. Really struggling against the run, which is surprising because Todd Bowles almost always has an elite run defense. Not this year. 26th in yards per carry allowed, 16th in success rate, 29th in run defense EPA. And that's horrible news for the Bucs because Saquon Barkley is on a warpath right now. 63 carries, 351 yards rushing, 5.6 yards per carry on the season for Saquon Barkley, looking like one of the most effective offensive players in the NFL so far this season. Every single Bucs game this year, they've been run on. Doesn't matter who their opponent is. Washington, 4.6 yards per carry. The Lions, 5.1 yards per carry. The Broncos, 4.9 yards per carry. So this Bucs run defense just seems to be broken, and you got the Eagles, they're running the ball all over everybody. I don't know how they're stopping that. Now, obviously, the injuries, the injury concerns on the Eagles offense, we need to take note of that. It's something we need to pay attention to. But as far as on paper, the Eagles should do whatever they want offensively against Tampa. Keep in mind, last week, they only scored 15 points against the Saints. That's not indicative of how that offense played. They were moving the ball up and down the field on New Orleans the whole game. Nick Sirianni's decision-making is the reason they only scored 15 points. It wasn't because the offense couldn't move the ball. The Eagles should have won that game by double digits. I mean, they outgained the Saints by like 250 yards. So this offense, I expect, now injuries pending, I expect to do whatever they want against Tampa's defense. But what about the other side? Let's talk about the Bucs offense. Numbers are looking okay. 18th in yards per play, 10th in success rate. Passing numbers look pretty good. 8th in yards per pass attempt, 4th in passing success rate. Not much of a run game. 23rd in yards per carry, 26th in success rate on the ground. That shouldn't shock you. Tampa had one of the worst rushing attacks in football last year. Probably going to have the same thing again this year. And here's the thing about Baker's numbers. They look really good. Kind of did all of his damage in that Week 1 game against Washington. Completed 80% of his passes, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, a 146 passer rating. He was essentially perfect in that opener against the Commanders. In his 2 games since then, he hasn't really been good. Yeah, completion percentage looks nice. Just 174 yards per game. Yards per pass attempt is way down. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, an 85 passer rating. Look at his numbers against the Broncos last week. 25 of 33. 33 pass attempts in the game, just 163 yards, an 83 passer rating. That's against the Broncos defense. So I know we're all loving Baker Mayfield in this Bucs passing attack right now, and first impressions are huge, right? So he opens up the season, throws for 4 touchdowns, 300 yards on Washington, and all of us as NFL fans were like, Baker's still here. Gonna be another big year for Baker Mayfield. Maybe not noticing that the 2 games since then, he hasn't really played well, and he's taking a ton of sacks. Check this out. So the Bucs offensive line hasn't been terrible in pass protection. 13th in pressure rate allowed, 17th in pass blocking grade, 32nd in adjusted sack rate. Why? Because Baker Mayfield is taking a lot of sacks. 36.1% pressure to sack rate. That's 39th. I don't even know out of how many quarterbacks, like 40 maybe qualified quarterbacks this year. 39th. Also, look at the turnover worthy play rate here. When given a clean pocket, 4.3%. That's not good. When pressured, 5.6%. So really putting the ball in harm's way. If you're able to get pressure on Baker Mayfield, these numbers are telling us he's either going to take a sack or put the ball in harm's way. You definitely don't love to see that if you're a Bucs fan. And I know you might be thinking, Kyle, who cares though? The Eagles defense is terrible. Hold on. I don't think the Eagles defense is as bad as you think. First of all, 27th in yards per play is terrible, but 9th in success rate is pretty good. Their numbers against the pass, average, maybe slightly below average. Same with their numbers against the run. But check this out. It's kind of the exact opposite of what we were talking about with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield started the season off hot, and everyone consensus was like, Baker Mayfield's back. Same goes for the Eagles defense. They started the season off getting lit up by Green Bay. 29 points, 414 yards. Maybe some of us aren't really noticing that the Eagles defense has looked all right since then, allowing just 17 points per game, 302 yards per game. And check this out. The Eagles pass rush might be back. In the last 2 games, Philadelphia is generating pressure on 46.6% of opponent dropbacks. That's second most in the NFL. So the Eagles pass rush, remember, it's not crazy. 2 years ago, the Eagles had the best pass rush in the NFL and wasn't close. So this Eagles pass rush might be here. That's a very good pressure rate in the last 2 games. And we just talked about Baker's numbers under pressure. Let's bring them back up. 39th in pressure to sack rate, 30th in turnover-worthy play rate when pressured. So I really don't like that matchup at all for Baker Mayfield. The problem with the Eagles defense hasn't been pressuring the quarterback. It's been the run game. They're getting bullied on the line of scrimmage. I mean, look at their run blocking, their run defense numbers. 27th in line yards, 28th in run defense grade, 32nd in yards before contact, dead last in yards before contact. So the Eagles have been struggling against the run. That's great news because Tampa Bay cannot run it. The Bucs offensive line is 28th in adjusted line yards. This Tampa Bay team hasn't had a run game in years. So look, I'm not going to go as far to say that the Eagles defense is good, but it's better than you think, and they actually match up against the Bucs offense really well. Where I would worry about back in the Eagles defense is against a team that can run the ball. That's not Tampa. So I actually like this matchup for the Eagles defense. I think they're going to play well. I think Tampa might have back-to-back poor games here, which is why, as far as betting a side goes, I can only lean towards Philadelphia. I'm not crazy with laying points on the road with an Eagles team dealing with injuries. I don't really like the feel of that. I don't hate an under, though. So I haven't bet this game yet, but I'm leaning towards Philadelphia -2.5 and the under at 45.5. I think the under would be my favorite bet as of right now. That's where I'm leaning. And another thing I forgot to mention that helps an under here, the Bucs pace. Tampa Bay is averaging 31 seconds even between snaps. That's second lowest in the NFL. Philly's pretty much right in the middle. They actually run a little bit of a quicker pace, but they're going to be running the ball, so I expect the clock to run. So I like that as far as an under, and also line movement is indicative of an under. The look-ahead total for this one was 48.5. It reopened after Sunday's games at 47.5. It's been since bought down. It's actually down to 44.5 now. So I even missed the 45.5. So I may have missed the number a little bit, but no question, the under is the side I want to be on here. Under. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see a list of mine there, as well as everyone on the staff. Also, when you sign up for Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. $150 and one of these trophies go to the winner every single week. So if you're interested in that, head over to the website and sign up. Let's have ourselves a nice week 4 here. Had a really nice week 3. Hope to keep that rolling. Live show Saturday morning college football, 10 a.m. up to kickoff. Sunday morning NFL, 11 a.m. up to kickoff. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. Let's have ourselves a good one here. Bet responsibly. Talking in the Discord.